Hello and welcome to social media. It's just talking with people. I welcome you. My name is Abdul Rabadi. I'm president of Blue Kite Consultants, and this presentation will be the first of many dealing with all things relating to the very complex world of contact centers. This will be an initial, very introductory view about social media and its intersection and role it plays in contact centers. It'll be a 20,000-foot view, which we'll delve into in later presentations about some of the very specific issues that we'll get to much more in depth. So with that being said, let's move on to the agenda. Today we'll be focusing on 6 areas relating to social media and contact centers. The first is, believe it or not, I still get asked this, what is social media? Secondly, we'll be addressing the hesitations of entering into the social media world and applying it to your business or contact center. I'm going to address a little more in depth of the lack of the perceived value that the business community still maintains in relation to contact centers. Then, of course, we have the enigmatic return on investment and analytics, measure, measure, measure. We're also going to discuss social media gaffes and how to avoid them. And lastly, we're going to discuss just getting started and keep growing. What is social media? I get asked that question by very successful businessmen almost on a daily basis. They ask me, what is it? I know it's about my kid telling her friends about what concert she went to, but how can I leverage it for my business, and what exactly is it? I usually start out by saying that social media is just people being people. They're just doing what they've always done. They've talked to each other, except now they're talking to each other with more volume and more impact. And then I proceed to tell them, think of social networking as a party line, except it's not a 5, 10 people. It's potentially 5,000, 5 million people. What's being said affects how your organization is perceived, good, bad, or indifferent. Potentially, it is a happy or an upset customer having a bullhorn that effectively millions of listeners will hear. It is estimated that 1 billion visitors frequent Facebook and Twitter every single month. If that absolutely has to be leveraged, good, bad, or indifferent, what you do will absolutely have ramifications on the perception of your organization. In university, I had an economics professor who said, if you're in business, there are 2 types of businesses, the quick and the dead. Social media has become so mission critical, it's expanding and gaining traction at such an exponential rate that if you do not jump on board and become very active and very engaged with your audience, you will be the latter. I was reading the Washington Post the other day and I came across an article by Brian Solis, and he coined a term that I like very much. It's called digital Darwinism, and I paraphrase here. It's the inability of some companies to adapt to rapid societal and technological evolutions that drive consumer behavior. That is absolutely true. If you are not on the forefront, someone else will, and your bottom line will suffer, and you will be lagging. I think most of us can agree that there is business value to social media, but there are still folks that actually have hesitations that they absolutely cling to, and those are privacy, confidentiality concerns, lack of perceived value, and social media gaffes. I hear this all the time. I don't want my mistakes to be known. I don't want the competitors to know about my product. And we're going to address that, but chances are they already know. Second, lack of perceived value. I'm not going to make any money off of this. Will absolutely be addressed. And social media gaffes, they happen, almost unavoidable, and there are ways to mitigate. It is very common for businesses to approach me and say, Abdo, I don't want to be involved in social media. I don't want my competitors to know what's going on. I certainly don't want to amplify any mistakes or gaffes that we may have done. And my standard response to them is, in the world that we live in now, with the internet and the absolute blinding speed at which information is disseminated, I say, bad news, guys, it's already out there. These are the resources available to the market that will determine who you are, what your customer service level is, the quality of your product. These resources are used every day and used often. As much as some organizations would like, lack of a social presence doesn't mean that you're this little guy here. You're not being seen, you're not being talked about. The simple matter of fact is you are. So be engaged and be involved. In a very tech-savvy market, a lack of a social presence is disconcerting, to say the least. Your silence is, in fact, deafening. Uh, it breeds and sends a message of lack of sophistication, a lack of caring, disengagement, disinterest. And it also breeds a bit of mistrust. Instead, I advise your customers are your best advocates. Engage them, talk to them. They want a line of communication with you that's quick, that's efficient. Uh, Sometimes if you get a negative comment, it's the best opportunity to turn it around and make it a positive. It's a great resource. You have market studies. You get feedback from your consumers. Things that used to cost tens of thousands of dollars are free if you would simply engage your audience. The second hesitation is a lack of perceived value. Just don't see it. Don't see the worth, Abdo. It's going to cost me too much in human capital. Don't have the time. Don't have the resources. It's not going to happen. One of my favorite examples to demonstrate the value that social media brings to bear occurred during South Africa's 2010 hosting of the FIFA World Cup. The non-World Cup sponsors, Nike, executed a brilliant social media campaign. It was called the Right to Future campaign. That it demonstrated that social media can rival or surpass the reach of the official sponsorship. Adidas was the official sponsor, and after Nike declined the $125 million sponsorship fee, Adidas accepted it, and Nike decided to push the Right to Future campaign using ambush marketing strategy, which included social media. And the Right to Future campaign was so successful that at a recent poll, it found that the majority of Twitter users actually thought that Nike, not Adidas, was the official sponsor. In fact, the marketing was so successful that Twitter agreed to block non-sponsors from purchasing ads on event-related hashtags, such as hashtag London 2012. How many of us have seen a movie solely on the recommendation of a friend? I know I have. The simple fact is that consumers 9 times more likely to act on the advice or recommendation of a peer as opposed to a paid corporate endorsement. With responsible social media, your organization can garner greater trustworthiness and move closer into that peer group of your consumer, resulting in your voice being more valued. And that is absolutely vital. While social media is a very powerful arrow in your organization's marketing and customer care quiver, if your organization, are unresponsive to the needs and wants of your consumer or the social media world at large, that very powerful arrow could be redirected towards your organization. And I thought I would just include just a few examples of how that occurred. In the mid-90s, Dell's customer service angered a blogger who commented on being trapped in Dell hell. That issue went viral and was the seminal case of a social media gaffe. BP in 2010 was slow in responding to the Deepwater Horizon pipeline explosion in the Gulf of Mexico. Environmental and community activists in the Gulf region took that and went viral as well, expressing in no uncertain terms their displeasure with BP. And Nestle, a few years ago, in an effort to increase cultivation of palm oil, which is a key ingredient in chocolate, began deforestation of the prime environment for the orangutan in Malaysia. Environmental groups, including Greenpeace, went absolutely globally viral at which point Nestle had to acquiesce and stop the deforestation. This was the old Nestle logo. This is the new Nestle logo. As you can tell, it is much more environmentally friendly, and I think really encaptures the power that social media brings to bear. It's at this point that the folks that are hesitant about social media say, see, Abdo, I told you, it's too hot of a hot potato. I can't risk having egg all over my face. At which point I come back and I'll say, quite frankly, the masses will forgive a gaffe or an error as long as the offender is perceived as contrite and remedies that mistake, especially when the consumer was made whole. I had a very similar experience a week ago. My web hosting service is done through GoDaddy.com. They were purportedly hacked. My service was down for a very brief amount of time. The next day, I received an email, and also on the Facebook and Twitter platform, I received a free month and 7 days of service as an apology. Said they maintain a standard of 99.99% uptime. They did not achieve that, and they are truly apologetic. They assured me no passwords or other confidential information was compromised, and showed honest contrition. They were very sorry. And in my eye, I was made whole, and I'm going to overlook it. In fact, I hold GoDaddy in higher esteem. And you will find that most consumers take the approach that if you make a mistake, are quick, admit to it, make the appropriate changes, make assurances that the errors that had occurred in the past have been rectified, they will accept that. And in fact, will hold you in higher esteem. A mistake or a gaffe is an opportunity to show that you care and value your consumer. It's a very, very important lesson, and it's a very, very valuable opportunity to get closer to your peers. At this point of the presentation, we get to the section regarding return on investment and analytics. At this point, let me tackle analytics first. It's absolutely pivotal that your organization monitor and react to your market. It's crucial to know what's the marketplace saying about you, your products or services. What is the tone and impact? Having this key information allows you to adjust your practices accordingly. It's positively vital to understand and identify key influencers and opportunities. So what if there are millions of bots commenting on their flight, their service, good, bad, late, on time, that sort of thing? How do we manage that? Well, the great news is that there are tools out there, and this is a snapshot of just one of them. There are hundreds of analytics management software that can tackle that problem for you to determine what the sentiment is out there in the social media world. Use them. They're absolutely invaluable. Now we come to the section of return on your investment. Quite frankly, probably the most posed question to me is determining what is my ROI on an active social media campaign. It is difficult to nail down and wrap your arms around, but it is manageable. Probably one of the most basic and most frequently used formulas in determining ROI, especially in the contact center world, is the number of people who say they would have otherwise engaged a contact center times the average number of calls, thus yielding you your ROI. For example, 10,000 average calls a week come into a contact center at $20 per call, $200,000 a week cost. If 10% find their solution, their issues are addressed using social media, 200,000 times 10%, thus there's a savings of $20,000. That's pretty cut and dry, but I don't think that's 100% accurate. It's very important for organizations to understand in determining ROI on social media. Sometimes it's easier to eat the elephant one small bite at a time. So in addition to the contact center deflection example that was in the previous slide, perhaps it's easier to put forth a few questions, makes it more manageable. What's the ROI if salespeople have better information about their prospects? What's the ROI if marketers can track the reach and return of their content over social media? What's the ROI of knowing which influencers and sending measurable volumes of referrals to your company from social network? What's the ROI if customer service reps can engage customers across social channels in order to respond more quickly and leave customers more satisfied? All very, very good questions. They are manageable, and they help you and your organization realize that there is a significant ROI in participating in a social media marketing and a social care program. Let's face it, the more your organization knows about your customer, the greater likelihood your marketing channel and your customer service channels are going to have a successful engagement with that customer. Once we have satisfied customers, we all know that translates to dollars, that translates to an improved net promoter score, and certainly results in recurring business. And as we all know, that is the bottom line. All right, Abdo, I'm sold. Now what? Well, that depends. What is your goal? You must have an absolute solid goal and a strategy in place. Is your goal to drive new business to your website, reduce contact center costs, test market a new product or service? But unless you have a plan and a strategy, it's simply not going to work out. There are 3 columns to a successful social media presence. First, plan. You must absolutely determine what platform your organization is going to use. And when you use it, you must also incorporate what elements of your social media activity your center is going to engage in, what's the goal, and how's it going to fit with the other channels within your organization. Secondly, participate. Participate professionally, purposefully, and promptly. And lastly, measure, measure, measure. Use the analytic software that's available. If you cannot gauge where you're going, you cannot determine success. At the end of the day, social media really is just about talking to people, except you and they have a much bigger megaphone than they did a few decades ago. Don't say anything that you would say at your grandmother's Thanksgiving table. If someone is angry with you, be professional, be courteous, say, we apologize, that does not meet our standards, and we'll address it, and actually do address it. If someone is thankful and heaping praise on you, address that as well, be very appreciative and kind-hearted about it. But most importantly, anything you do, you are simply talking to people. Imagine that person is not just a set of characters on a screen. He or she is really a them, and they're sitting directly across the table from you. Common sense goes a very, very long way. Thank you very much for watching this introductory presentation on social media. It's just talking. Please keep an eye out for our more in-depth webcasts to come in the near future. If you have any questions or comments, please visit our site at bluekiteconsultants.com. And while you're there, please take a moment to visit our blog that's linked under the tab Our Thinking to read our most current social media and contact center thoughts and ideas. I'm Abdo, everybody, and I thank you very much for your attention, and I wish you much success in the future.